Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in today. Before we kick it off, on behalf of Indigitek, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the many lands where Indigitek works and pay our respects to elders, both past and present. Also to any First Nations brothers and sisters who are joining us today, hey. We also recognise that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been innovating since time immemorial. They are the original storytellers, technologists, engineers and scientists. So, hello, we are Indigitek. My name is Celeste. I'm a Burraga Badjura and South Sound woman from Far North Queensland. My family hail from the Burdekin. And I am the Manager of Community Programs and Engagement here at Indigitek.
And my name's Ben Armstrong. I'm Rudry man. I've worked in the IT industry for 20 years. I'm the director at Indigitek. I wear many different hats, do lots of different things, whether it's working with Celeste on the programs and engagement, working with the community, or just working with our partners as well. My job is to just do as much as I can to keep things moving forward.
He's an all-rounder.
The all-rounder. Okay, so this is Indigitek. We are a very small organization. As you can see here, we have our mission. What is most important about Indigitek is that we are by mob for mob. We are fully founded, fully operated, Indigenous not-for-profit, DGR status, and the only one of these organizations in the tech industry. We do lots of different things, but at a high level, our goal and what drives us as our mission statement is to create 300 jobs for Indigenous people in the technology sectors by 2030. That seems like a very small number and a long time, but considering the challenges that exist right now and the gap that is definitely not closing, we think that this is the most realistic, but it is absolutely achievable goal.
So this is an overview of the pipeline. We often talk about the pipeline in gaming spaces, and we often feel as though they're not interpreted in the same way as other companies and other people. But Indigitek understands the passion for technology careers begin with seeing representation, building knowledge and skills, and having a community to support their journey. And we aim to connect with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, to provide pathways and support for new entrants into the technology sector, whilst providing inspiration to pursue new and rewarding career opportunities. And we also ask that our industry partners go on that shared journey with us, just so they can learn as much as possible. But I guess when we talk about the pipeline, often the pipeline I feel is reduced to a certain generation of people, those who already exist within the pipeline or within technology careers, or it's limited to specific issues that don't account for those who leak out of the pipeline. And those are those people who need the most support.
Yeah, within the Indigenous community, we talk about these issues in the pipeline a lot. And what we feel is most important is the pipeline that comes before recruitment, well before those learnt skills, well before jobs, before people even know that jobs exist. Right, this is very important when we talk about this because, as Celeste just pointed out, a lot of people focus on that. What can I do in the short term? And that's usually very focused around what can I do to help my organization look good? Okay, that's not actually sovereign. That's not actually really helping Indigenous people, move forward, because we're just taking talent out of the pipeline that's already there. We're not helping to improve that pipeline and make it bigger, stronger, make it sustainable, and make it scalable moving forward. And eventually that will be a problem.
And we always have industry partners approach us and ask us for talent, and we have to constantly remind people that there is no talent pool just waiting around for you to pluck from. You have to invest in the hiring and the learning. And when we say learning, that doesn't just mean the learning of the candidate. That is the learning that your company needs to do in order to create a safe and inclusive space, and how to manage and encourage people who have different lived experiences to you and how to nurture them and their abilities. And your company should include the people in which you serve and the people of the land in which you operate. So gaming is a great opportunity to push for engagement from the Indigenous community, and knowing how to engage is very important. I guess working with Indigenous people and their knowledge and cultural perspectives must be dealt with sensitively and compassionately and respectfully. For the most part, there needs to be, I add value to you and you add value to me, which is just how all jobs and all people should be approached in general, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when we talk about that, we talk about that 2030 timeline. That's really important, and in fact, it's probably been accelerated now because of COVID. But we still are trying to maintain that vision. And what that means is that programs and support need to be put in place now to really see the big benefit from that in 5, plus years. 5 to 10 years is what we're talking about. There will be those early wins and those early successes along the way, but we really need to be thinking about how can we change the situation? How can we change the lens, that representation in 5 years? What do we need to do to make that happen? And that's where Indigitek looks at our community programs, as Celeste was talking about, and we look at our industry partners and what we can do. What are you looking for? How can we work with that to support a community? And in the end, how does that also help support those mob? How can they perhaps become self-determining in their communities, perhaps work from home, work on country? There are lots and lots of opportunities in there that we can look at that are beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, and I would say that I guess becoming self-aware and looking at your own privileges and biases is very important in these spaces. And even before you attempt to reach out and engage with Indigenous people, the only way that you're going to learn is by being comfortable with the uncomfortable. But that's going to make your experience and your interactions 100 times easier. And it's going to be easier to have those open and honest conversations about where you're at and where your company's at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, there are lots of ways, if you were thinking about perhaps, talking to Indigitek about how we could work with you, there are lots of opportunities and in a way, to put it into a very corporate term, services that we could potentially offer. But it's best to keep in mind that we are community-led and driven. And as I mentioned before, we're by mob for mob. So everything that we do needs to be sovereign in that regard. But we do work with lots of partners on high-quality training. We work with them to help supplement into our community programs and sponsor and fund and keep those community programs sustainable and work with that so that pipeline gets built up. But it's very important that everyone looks at, as Celeste was just saying, themselves and also doing the work internally. And Indigitek loves to partner with organizations who are doing that work. A lot of our community, leverage us in regard to, do you know X company or Y company? And do you know much about them? Are they a safe place to work at? Right? The way that Indigenous communities work and word of mouth is very, very powerful. So we often get those, those queries come to us. And it's always great for us to be able to turn around and say, I know that your passion is in, software development. That company that you've just spoken about, they are really doing the good work. They are doing some great things. They're not there yet, maybe, but they're doing some great things, and it might be a really good opportunity for you to apply to see there and see if you could advance your career and learn some new skills as well.
Yeah. So being able to truly vouch for a company or organization is taken very seriously. We ain't just going to vouch for anybody.
Hey, we're accountable to our community as well,
yes.
Which makes us very different from a lot of other for-profit organizations, as not pointing out any people in particular, but for us, it is being about accountable to our community. So if we vouch for you, we're vouching. That community expects us and holds us accountable for that as well. So that's very important to have that partnership and that relationship. And that's really what, another aspect of Indigitek is that we're very relationship driven in that regard.
Yes.
Talk a lot about gaming,
speaking
though.
Of community,
yeah.
Speaking of the community, we have a great Indigitek gaming community with a lot of passionate gamers and a lot of people who have their own different skill sets who add a lot to them, contribute a lot to our community. And we just wouldn't be who we are without the community, to be honest.
100%. That is 100%. And one of the things we noticed in the first, months of COVID and especially in those initial lockdowns in 2020 was that being an organization and a community that's all about engagement and relationships, that became very challenging. It actually is still very challenging. And what we did was we sat down and said, we need to be able to engage with our community in different ways. And we're obviously, having challenges engaging even within our own team and being there. So, Celeste and I were like, let's look at gaming, right? It's fun. We love the game. Let's do something around the gaming space. So we thought, let's do some live streaming. Why not? We've never done that before. So we started up a Twitch channel and we started talking to, Indigenous people around, were they streaming on Twitch? Were they playing games? We created a safe space online that is for Indigenous people only. Come together and support each other, talk and communicate and engage. And that's been flourishing. It's been doing really, really well. We have a stream team. It's not an official stream team, but we call it our stream team of streamers who stream on the Indigitek Twitch channel. We play all different types of games. We have our all Indigenous D&D group called the Chicken Salt Bays that I am DMing for. Celeste is a part of, and you can see a picture of us here on the screen. And what we try and do is just be as fun as engaging as we can. We have community gaming nights. We're working towards, helping our community with different offerings around games and also support, right? We found some things happened in the last, 12 months that were, not done the right way. And what really was positive out of that is that the community came together to talk and support each other around that. And being able to do that has been so valuable to all of our, mob out there who are feeling isolated during lockdowns, and want to connect and play together through games. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. Which I think has been the experience for a lot of different communities during this time as well. We're no exception to that rule. There's everyone's out there connecting in the best way they know how. So I guess it's been really, really important and a really significant thing to be able to do this online, especially in an industry that we weren't ever thought of in or granted access to. So I guess that comes back to the gaming industry and about what the gaming industry can do, and where the gaming industry and we yourselves feel the future and what you see or what you envision the future of the gaming industry to look like. And as much as we can tell you about what we hope for and what we are aiming for, in keeping with the theme of GCAP, raising the bar, the only people who can hold any of you in this industry accountable is yourselves.
100%.
As much as Indigenous people can tell you what we want to see and what we want to, and how we want to be involved and included, at the end of the day, we can only tell you. You have to do the work yourselves to I guess, develop those pathways as well. So, I think the way in which the gaming industry operates needs to be reevaluated, and I think First Nations people's perspectives and stories and the way that we're consulted needs to be included from the jump and not an afterthought. And even in the next 10 years, it's like where do we see the gaming industry going? Are we just going to continuously pump out the same type of things, or are we going to appropriately seek stories and consultation from elsewhere? So I guess there's a lot to look at, just like any industry. But this is an industry where we can affect real change and have a transformation that doesn't take 2 decades to make.
And have huge impact on the outcomes for Indigenous people. There really is an opportunity there in so many ways. We can go into more detail another time, but there are so many ways, from representation to career opportunities, the full spectrum.
Yeah, and I guess it's always the main reason we get for it that not to happen is because we can't find any Indigenous people. And it's like, well, we're telling you, we have a whole community of Indigenous people who are gamers, who play your games every day, who live and breathe this, and who have a lot to say and have a lot to feel about what they would like to see and about the games that they play. So, the too difficult basket, not an excuse anymore. It's 2021.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, great segue.
So, intro. We're going to be speaking now to Morgana Watson. She is a Māori cultural consultant and the creative director of 4Phase Games in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So without further ado, here's Morgana.
Hi, Morgana. Thanks for having a yarn with us today. Before we get into things today, Morgana's just going to do a quick karakia for us. So take it away.
Thank you. Kia ora no tātou. Ka tuera tēnei ui me te karakia kia uru mai a awora au ka a au maia. I runga ki raro ki roto ki wa o rire au pai mārire. Let there be peace with everyone. Let's have a lovely hui meeting. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Great.
Deadly,
I love
deadly.
it. Thank you. So I guess we haven't got long, so let's just get straight into it. So, 4Phase Gamers and yourself and the journey that you've gone through to get to where you are now.
Oof. Can I work backwards? No.
Yeah. Attack it in any way you want to attack it.
Yeah. When I was born, so when I was 30, we'll start there. When I was 30, so I'm 43. When I was 30, I was like, oh, I can't wait till someone makes a Māori Tomb Raider or a Māori God of War. Like, I just can't wait to play that. Been gaming, collecting comics and watching anime since I was very young. And yeah, I turned 40 and I was like, hello, anybody home?
Seriously out there.
If someone could just make this game. Of course, games were being made, and we do have incredible Māori game developers here in Aotearoa. But I just didn't see the game, and I didn't see myself in any games. And so one of my friends had facilitated this massive Māori innovation and tech festival event, and he had like 10 speakers, and these were like incredible Māori creators and developers, and they were at the forefront of like cutting edge stuff in the Māori tech scene. And I just thought to myself, man, if I was ever going to make a game, it would be with these people. And so I cold called some of them I did know. And I made a list of the 10 best people I could think of my dream team to make this game. I had an idea of what I wanted the narrative to be, and it's grown since then. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
pretty cool. So you have an all Māori team.
Yeah, yes. So the team has changed.
Yeah.
You know, people come and go, but the core of the team are the same people, which is pretty amazing. I think as far as I know, and we're a handful, there's not many Māori game developers in the industry, so we all kind of know each other. We've all gotten to know each other. We all link up real quick because we're a tiny little country.
Yeah.
And so as far as I know, our team is the only all Māori team, and the only team where all the women have moko kauai, or our traditional Māori tattoos, as far as I know. So yeah, we've kind of just put ourselves out there as being unapologetically Māori. Everything we do that has to do with the game are also the things that we live. So we live by it, and then we game by it too. That makes sense.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm actually a little bit jealous.
Little bit.
Just a little bit.
Hey, if you want to come over and jump on the team, though.
Well, I'm glad we've all connected now, because now we will know each other. Yeah, it's forever. Yeah. So cool. So your lived experience and your culture has really informed the work that you guys do at 4Phase Games. And I guess when you're making your games, like, what's that process like?
So we a big part of this whole process, and we're still doing it, it's just going to be this ongoing thing, is decolonizing how we create games. because we were all brought up, this is the whole team, we all game, and we all game together. We were all brought up in mainstream gaming. So the narratives are just total Western perspective, and very, very different to the Māori perspective and how we see and experience the world. So a big part of our narrative sharing is decolonizing the way that we share, and then every move that we make and decide on, we have to ask ourselves, is this Māori? Is this true to who we actually are? So we always refer back to protocols, the language, stories. We say, how people say, what would Jesus do? we either name one of our atua, one of our deities, or one of our gods. For example, Mahuika is the goddess of fire. So we're like, what would Mahuika do? She would burn shit down. Nah. Sorry. But we also say things like, what would our tupuna do? Is that true to the narrative that we're trying to tell? And also, when we express this, we have to really process to filter through our own indoctrinations. You know what I mean?
Yes, because I was going to say that. Has there been a lot of unlearning?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Even, it's a broad spectrum. You know how technical gaming is and how complex it is to make a game. Technical things about how the character moves through the world. Do they walk like a sexy bayonetta?
Yeah.
Is that Māori? How do we move? How do we fight? What are our faces doing? And a really good reference for me personally is kapahaka, so Māori performing arts. And I do that, I'm in a kapahaka group as well. So I'm always referring back, and I'm always watching our people and how we move to stay true to our character building. Yeah,
and it is in the details, isn't it?
It totally is. It's the only point of difference. We have to keep reminding ourselves, and I'm always reminding the team, our literal only point of difference is that, number one, this team, number two, that we're Māori. So as soon as we start edging over into that mainstream way of doing things, we've lost it. We've lost our edge. We've lost our niche. We're not being authentic. So we have to really, we have to really stick with what we're trying to create.
And how hard is that in this industry to be able to maintain that, not in your team necessarily, but with all the different, systems and organizations that you have to work with outside of your teams that I'm potentially just don't get that. They don't understand that.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky here, and you'll know this as, Indigenous Australian people. We're lucky here in the sense that our culture is strong, and that we're very forthcoming in the way that we express ourselves. So a big it's not like a rule as such, but my first go-to is always working with Māori first, and Māori who identify as such. So it's not just about having Māori parents, it's about, are they working in that space?
Yes.
Are they in the cultural space? Do they speak the language? So I'm always looking out for people who are very Māori, so that when we go to work together, I don't have to explain certain things that we as Indigenous kind of just click with, It's those unspoken, shared experiences of being Indigenous that makes the work easier. But also we made a decision, and it kind of came out of we're just fresh out of the NZ Game Dev conference that was at the start of August, and we did a little panel in there, and we were joking around leading up. We were like, oh, should we cosplay? It'd be so funny. And, what if we just came as like the Power Rangers, or,
Yeah.
People, they're like, who are they? What do they look like? And then we thought, oh, maybe not cosplay, but let's just be unapologetically Māori. So what do we do? One of our guys wears a traditional shoulder piece. I'm wearing Maori kura. Obviously, I look Māori. Hiria, our producer, she also has a moko kauai. Our other guy's like, I'm going to wear a big sheepskin, and he looks like a bear, you know. And our guys are just like, they have these majestic beards. So, you know, very Māori looking. And it looked like we realized that we stuck out like a sore thumb. What we thought was just expressing our Māoridom and our Māoriness looked like cosplay to other people. And people were just like, who's that?
Yeah.
What are they? Are they dressed up as the characters of the game? Like,
yeah.
And we got some really cool photos done, and everything's kind of the momentum from that has really taught us a lot about it made it easier for us to decide we're Māori, and so it's we've just set the bar there now. So it's quite easy to make decisions when you've like made that kind of foundational core decision of we're unapologetic about it. You know, if that means we're getting political, if it means we're about to protest, if it means we have to say no to people or yes to people, cool. It makes it easier. You know, it gives you like laser focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what have been I guess when you're interacting or engaging with non-Māori game developer companies and whatnot, like what are those? I guess what are some of the biggest challenges in that, and like how can those situations be improved or changed? You know.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I'm going to be straight up. Like, it's hard because people want to help, and we're all humans at the end of the day. You know, we're complex, but we're humans as well. So people just want to help. You know, and I have been approached heaps since the conference has happened, and you know, our media, our socials have kind of built up and stuff. And people are saying, "Let me do this for you for free." Which is amazing because it's like, cool, because we've got no money.
There's the ask, people. There's the ask.
So the way I see it is we have such a strong core that there's kind of these outer rings, like the rings of Saturn, you know.
Yeah.
So we've got our core, and then we're going to have, you know, our programmers and our coders and our developers come in who we work closely with. And then there's kind of this next circle of people who want to help, who we're going to let help, but strategically. Yeah. So it's like they won't be making any decisions that will ultimately affect the game or anything like that. And I think people are okay with that. It's like, oh yeah, no, we don't want you to do that, but we do want you to do this. An amazing person got in contact with me the other day and said, I can do this, this, and this. And I was like, cool, well, can you do it this way? And he said, yes. And he just did the thing for free. He spent a bit of time on it, and it was really like, it was a good analysis. And it's, you know, it's helped us out. So it's like little things. It's like, rather than giving people the whole job, it's like, actually, you know, can you just do this one thing for us? That'll help. And people are like, cool, because it's got scope, you know?
Yeah. And so we struggle with that too at Indigitek, you know, and how do we control those narratives, and how do we strategically move through these interactions and these engagement with these people and these different companies who want to help, whilst also at the same time, like, what is best for community?
Exactly. Like, and that's kind of a rule of thumb that I go by as a teacher as well, because people ask me to come in and do this cultural stuff, share this cultural stuff. And my first question to them and to myself is always, how is it serving Māori? How are you serving me? How are you serving my next generations? If it's not, the answer is, sorry.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Computer says no. Computer says no.
Tell us a little bit more about your game, because there's going to be a lot of people out there who probably don't even know anything about it.
And so
tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at 4Phase Games.
So we're still building. Our next steps are building a playable prototype. So I have to be careful about sharing certain parts of the concepts, but.
Yep.
Our story follows two sisters. That's at the heart of the story. And it's set in an Indigenous futurism. So it's a Māori futurism. We've gone 1,000 years into the future if colonization never happened.
Ooh.
So that presents a whole new barrel of challenges.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's so exciting, and it felt so right when we made the decision, because we were doing a mythical, fantastical, spiritual, physical game initially set in the past. But we felt like, I don't know, it just was like sluggish when we were trying to build the narrative. And I just put it to the team. I just said, what if we went the other way? Why is this so hard? Like, why are we struggling to tell our own story? As soon as we went the other way, magic moment.
Yeah.
And we've had magic moments since. Like, we just had so many moments where we were like, oh, like nerding out hard,
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
And it's the little things it's like putting together a puzzle of a story that's already created itself. We're just working out the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when things fall into place, I think that's kind of like the addictive part of being creative, is like when something clicks and your narrative just goes boom forward, you're just like, oh, it was good.
yeah.
Here to mine. And we've found just an incredible chemistry between our creative team. There's 3 of us inside the core team that are the creators. So it's myself as a creative director and storyteller. There's Machu, who is our combat specialist. He's a fresh graduate of Te Whare Tūtoa, which is a Māori weaponry school. Kura.
Right.
So his level of knowledge in that part of our culture is like hardcore. And then I met Jojo, who is our senior lead artist. I found his work on TikTok. So I was just like, who is this guy? And he makes such cool like sound effects. He's like, when he draws, he's like,
yeah.
I was like, this is someone I want to work with. And so when we get together and we start riffing on ideas,
the magic happens.
Yeah. The magic happens. And we've found that as soon as something doesn't quite click, we leave it alone, because it's like, how water, like a river, finds its way.
Yes.
We've found that all the things that came freely and flowed and like perfect and felt good are the things that have stuck for the in the story. And the things where we've kind of had to push or nudge, that they haven't really we haven't developed them because they just don't work.
But that makes a lot of sense, actually. And I think the thing that I love is just how much as you mentioned before, lived experience and cultural knowledge is being put into this, and that's where that flows from, right? It's coming from that deep knowledge, that experience, and that you've lived, and that you've maybe even just learned. Like the weapons school sounds amazing. Like,
it's insane. Like, it's insane.
And that's
you don't realize a person's level of knowledge until we meet a challenge, or we have a question about something, or we're physically moving, like we're working out combats and choreographing fights, and then he'll like bust out this 1,000-year-old knowledge, and I'm just like, I can't take I haven't got the capacity for this level of knowledge.
Yeah.
This is crazy. It's so good. So we're learning a lot from each other. I speak the most te reo in the group. So I try to drop it in and converse, and but then we're all sitting around the table, and then, we're all riffing off each other and working our way through the narrative. And Jojo he'll just be like, oh, is it like this? And he'll pull up a picture that was in my brain. And I'm like, how did that get from there to there? We were talking, and then he was like, It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
cool,
such a surreal thing. It's like when you explain something to someone and then they literally like physically make the thing for you that you saw in your mind, you know?
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So cool. Yeah, it's real cool moment.
And I guess that also just speaks to, like, when people are recruiting for teams, it kind of just speaks to the many different ways in which you can recruit people and find people. And then, you know, who aren't, especially like me, who I'm not a techie, like I'm not a developer or a coder, and yet I work for Indigitek, you know what I mean? So so like there's different ways and different avenues and different skill sets that are required for these spaces.
Totally. I think we call ourselves the Māori Voltron because we all come together, we're all separate lions.
Yeah.
And so Jojo was like, so Morgana, I envision you as being like the black lion, you know, you're like the head and the chest. And then Machu's one arm and Jojo's another arm, and then Hiria is the legs because she produces the stuff and moves us forward. And then Amber, she's like the sword that comes out and cuts through all the bullshit, you know.
I love it.
Māori Voltron. We're like, oh, we need it. We need someone.
We need it.
We need someone to draw us just as like Māori Voltron.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ben,
true.
what can me and you be, Ben? What requires two things?
Yeah. You can be the comms, eh? You can be our tech guy that we call upon. We radio in if we need anything. Hey, what's our stat? Bring up the map, y'all. Where are we? Which planet are we on?
100%. We be there. It's so, obviously it's incredible for, you know, Celeste and I to be able to talk to you, and we can you know, completely relate to this, you know, the passion and it's not just the passion, but there's a special something special about working in an Indigenous team with you know, where you connect and that riffing but it's just something about being in a room full of Indigenous people, or sometimes we would say Black people, and just you know, completely embracing yourself into that. And it sounds like you've got exactly that with your team, which is just, it really is beautiful. There's nothing more to say about that. It's a beautiful thing, and you've got that passion. We can see that, and such an incredible, you know, team that you're working with. You know, before we, you know, finish up, you know, what is your, you know, I wouldn't say closing statement, but, you know, or call to action, but, you know, what is it that, you know, the greater gaming community and the people in the gaming sector, people watching this, you know, can either do to help or really do, or really think about maybe, or, you know, about, you know, working with Indigenous people in gaming and the challenges that you know, we face, but also the experience and the beauty that we bring to it.
Yeah, totally. I think that if you're Indigenous and you want to be in the industry, your point of difference is the fact that you're Indigenous. And I think people think you have to know all the thing, you know, have to know your entire culture. Nobody knows that before you can actually own that. But it's always a process. It's all, you know, your learning is a lifelong journey. So you don't have to be fluent in your Indigenous language in order to embrace it and to be able to be in that space and work with it. And I think like another really important thing that I'd like to get across, if anyone takes anything away, let it be this: if you are not Indigenous and you want to tell Indigenous stories, you have to be ready to sit down and listen and be quiet and be an ally. And that also means your own self-awareness and the biases and prejudices that you hold as a non-Indigenous person. Because so many people want to help us out and they're not Indigenous and they're not aware of their own prejudices and biases. And that's a huge hindrance. It's a huge barrier to what could be incredible work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for our Indigenous people, whatever that, you know, whatever you identify as, hold that 100%, own it, unapologetic about it. And to our non-Indigenous, align yourself and also become self-aware of your privileges and your prejudices.
Yes, which which I would say is going to require you to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Totally.
Which is the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah. Yes,
it's uncomfortable, but it's fun. You're never going to forget it.
No, yeah. And learning is continuous. You know, you never stop learning.
Of course,
you know, so
absolutely,
it's definitely a journey to take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. What a great yarn today. Thanks for joining us.
Such a good yarn, Morgana. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks so much for the invite. Cool.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for watching, and GCAP for giving us the opportunity to talk and also share this space with Morgana and bring in her, her story, a little bit about her story as well, and her team's story. Thank you a lot, everyone.